Please subscribe Raj Shamani Clips channel if you want to become a better leader for tomorrow and achieve your Indian dream in short amount of time with just small clips. Why are you doing what you're doing? And what makes you think that you're successful because of XYZ reason? Like, what are those reasons you think?
Good question. Perfect question. And I think that'll be the question in mind of a lot of people. So good. All right. Do you want me to just keep going? Yeah, go ahead. So just to give you some background, I was born in India, New Delhi, India. And we moved to Australia when I was very young. Like most Indians, I had a dream to be successful because we came from a middle-class family. We had financial problems. I saw that there was a lot of stress at home because of finances. So naturally, I was driven financially. I wanted to do well financially. But the only career path I knew was, get a degree and then get a corporate job and then work up the corporate ladder. And so I said, where can I learn about money? And first I started just packing bags at the supermarket. That's what I used to do. Okay. And as a young person, you can get jobs right from the age of 16. You can work, you can do that. But then once I turned 18, I got a job as a teller at a bank, cashier basically, counting cash. And I thought this was my in to try and get into the bank, but I was hopeless at counting cash. Okay. But then, because I was hopeless, and every day the manager would come in and she said, we can't balance the till. There's extra money in the till at times. What are you doing? So they got very frustrated. They had to stay back and help me. So they said, why don't you stand at the door and greet people? Just greet people for now. So I stood at the door, and that was not bankers. That's not what bankers did. But they didn't know what they were going to do with me. So I stood at the door and I started greeting people as people walked in. And I started to get into deep conversations. I didn't realize it at the time, but I had natural curiosity with people. So I started asking them questions. And I realized that there was people who were coming in quite frequently. And so I wanted to find out why they're coming in frequently, whether they're depositing money, how they're making money. And so I started to learn a lot. I started to gather information from people. And the branch that I was in, the banking branch, was in one of the top primary locations of Melbourne, which is called Collins Street. It's called the Paris end of Collins Street. So it's similar to the Wall Street in New York. And so people would walk in, and they were really high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals that were walking in. So I started to develop a curiosity. I started to develop a bit of a relationship. And then one day some guy walked in, some guy in a suit, and he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name's this." And he said, "Would you like to be a financial advisor?" And I thought, it's really weird because I'm broke. And like, how can somebody think that I can be a financial advisor? But, I was excited in the title. So I said, yes, I'd love to be. And he said, all right. And I think they thought that I had the gift of the gab. And back then the financial services industry was not very well regulated. If you had the gift of the gab, it was all about selling financial products. It was actually not about giving good financial advice.
Okay. So whoever was like a good salesperson would probably get into it.
Correct. So that's what they saw. I didn't see myself as a salesperson, but they saw me as a great salesperson. They said, this guy is very good at building relationships and reports. So they said to the manager, don't put him behind the counter. We will train him. So he took me under his wing. I went through some training and I got the job of a financial advisor. I remember going to my father and I said, Dad, I'll become a financial advisor. And my dad said, but you're broke. So I was like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. I didn't care because I was so excited about the title, right? And I did that for 18 months, but I failed miserably because all that we were required to do was to sell financial products, sell insurance, sell investments, sell managed funds. And so I didn't think that that's what I was signing up for. So I decided to leave financial planning. I failed and I got into just banking. And then from there, I just worked my way up the corporate ladder. And by the time I was 31, I'd done extremely well. So I'm 45 now. And by the time I was 31, I was driving European cars. I was wearing expensive suits. I had the watches. I had the lifestyle. I'd bought a home. I actually bought a home at 19. So I was always very financially oriented that way. But the problem was one day I was coming home and I was always feeling aggressive. I was feeling agitated. I was feeling irritated. I was getting headaches. My immune system was not very good. On the weekends, I would go out and party hard and drink hard. And so something was wrong. I couldn't figure it out, but there was something wrong. Here I am, everyone's like, you're really successful. You've got this private banking role. You're making an incredible amount of money. Even I thought I was successful, but deep down I felt like something was missing. And so I really think that from 31 up until now is when my journey has really started, where I started to reflect inwardly, started to ask myself some important questions. Who am I? What do I really want? I'm still very financially motivated, but I think there has been a bit of a change. Back then, it was just money was the main thing. Now it's like, how can I make money doing what I love, but also makes a positive contribution to humanity? So that's what's changed. Still financially motivated, but the means have changed.
And what made you think that, like, what was the reason for this change?
Or just the frustration coming home and having, and I knew that there was something else. Now, I do love learning about money, and I love what I was doing in private banks. I liked the prestige and the status that went with it, but deep down, it didn't really fulfill me. And so I came across this model by Gay Hendricks, which is about your zone of genius.
Okay.
And it got me intrigued. I knew that financial advisory and wealth management was my zone of excellence. But I started to ask myself, is this also my zone of genius?
What is zone of genius?
Zone of genius is the zone which you are absolutely naturally brilliant at.
Okay.
Not to say that you don't need to develop that skill further, but you have very strong natural foundations. You have a very strong natural orientation. You have a gravitational pull towards certain endeavors. And if you just put a little bit of time and effort into it, you end up accelerating your success. And so I started to realize, and basically he makes the case that there are different zones. There's the zone of incompetence, all the things we're bad at. Zone of competence, things that we're reasonably good at. Zone of excellence, things that we're very good at. And zone of genius, things that we're actually geniuses at. And I started to realize, maybe there is some genius tapped into me. And is it in this space of wealth management, or is it something else? And that's how, when I started to go through this exercise of doing personal development, I discovered that my actual zone of genius was teaching. And somebody, I can't remember who, but somebody did this exercise with me, and they said, look, who are you by spirit, who are you by mind, and who are you by heart? And so after doing a lot of reflection on that, I realized by spirit, I'm a teacher. You might be an entrepreneur by spirit. I'm an entrepreneur by mind. It's not a natural thing for me. I've learned it. But I'm a teacher by spirit. It just comes to me naturally. My ability to think complex concepts, dissect them, present them in a way that can cause transformation, it just comes naturally to me. So I started to embrace that identity more. And then I thought, I need to do this more. But I wasn't going to make an impulsive decision and give up everything that I had built.
Okay.
So I said, let me do it on the side and see how that works. And then as I started to speak and I started to mentor, the response was incredible. And I thought, yes, it feels right. It feels really good. And now I was starting to lose interest in what I was doing on the wealth management and financial planning space, especially because I built my own business. And I thought, I'm going to make the transition, but I didn't know when to make the transition. So I said, let me build a business out of this, because I want to monetize this. And so as we started to monetize it and we started to get repeated revenue, I made the transition and I said, that's all I'm going to do now. I'm going to focus on that. And so that's why I'm here. And obviously India was, we launched it was about 4.5 years ago. I had the vision. I said, what I'm teaching, I very strongly believe that this is incredibly transformational. I wish somebody had taught me this in school and university. I wish that somebody had taught me this in corporate. I never learned any of this. So I said, I'm pretty certain if people in the West don't know this stuff, people in India definitely don't know this stuff. So I started to look at the statistics in India. I was curious, how many people are actually successful? Because every time I spoke to my family, I got the impression that everybody's making this crores and crores of money. All the news is people are all billionaires and millionaires. So I thought, I'm a good researcher. Let me look at actually what's happening in India. So I researched the trends. How many billionaires in India? It's about 190 at the moment, out of 1.4 billion people. How many millionaires in India? It's about 7.7 lakhs. If you actually convert 7.7 lakhs, you divide that by 1.4 billion people, it's 0.55%. So 0.5% of the Indian population are millionaires. But I'm hearing about all these stories that everybody's got a unicorn, everybody's got this tech startup, everyone's got this massive funding from venture capitalists. I'm constantly hearing this. And I really hear it from India than any other country, right? So I'm thinking, what's going on here? So I started to investigate how many people have a net worth of over 100 crores in India. And it's about 23,000 people. Again, if you break it down in percentage terms, it's 0.0016%. So I'm thinking, how come so many Indians have this dream, the probability of which is 0.0116%, and they're not going to get there? For the vast majority, this dream is not going to materialize. Like, I know that you're a guy who's built an exceptional business, but you are definitely a minority of people, right? And so I started to realize that there is a whole gap here in people's understanding. And so I started to think, when I started to develop my programs and my educational courses, I actually had the young Indian professional in mind. I started to put myself in their shoes going, what is their blind zone? What is their ignorance zone? What is it that they believe that's erroneous? What do they really need to know to complement what they've been educated on? And so that's how we started to become really passionate about bringing our programs to India.
Thank you for watching this till the end. If you want to become a better leader for tomorrow, then subscribe our channel for more such clips.